represent the main cohort for customized learning. And we will have these slides posted up on the website, but you at least have in this first slide our contact information if you have questions as we move forward. The main cohort is a collection of schools across Maine that has been working on this idea of a vision for customized learning for 5 years. And so what we've done is we've built a curriculum and we've started to progress. And what we do is, as a group of schools, Mary, would you mind shutting that door?
Sure.
I just lost my train of thought. So what we do is we work together, we bring district leaders together sometimes, and then also teachers together to try to problem solve some of the roadblocks and structures that we're running into as we implement customized learning structures. One of the roadblocks that we know full well is this idea that students are not going to be able to get into college if we put them into a proficiency-based system that doesn't have traditional grades. Now we've proven that wrong. We have another consulting group in New England here, up in New England, just north of us, that has engaged college presidents in this conversation. So we do have some signed agreements from a number of different colleges in the New England area to say, no, we know that when students come to us out of a system like this, that they're going to be better prepared, and we can handle different transcripts. What we have done as a cohort is take that another step further, and we've joined up with a couple of college admissions folks to sit at the table with us and help us understand what can we move to, what kind of report can we move to that really honors these particular principles. So Tom just mentioned these principles about learning. These are the 6 that we've adopted as an organization. All of our schools in our cohort have strategic plans that include guiding principles for learners and learning. Many times there are more than just these 6, but these are the 6 that we've agreed upon. And I think this is one of the most important parts of a strategic plan, because as you move forward and you make decisions, and even a decision about a transcript report, we've used these particular statements and we said, we're going to honor these things. When we don't honor them, we're actually going to make a point to say that to folks. We're going to say, this is a compromise. This is our method of transitioning to what we ultimately want to have. But there are times where we may not be able to take the big leap, and so we'll tell you that. We took these particular guiding principles and we said, okay, so how are we going to build a report, a transcript report, that doesn't, I say in quotes, hurt our kids, that college admissions people will accept and tell us that that they can actually use that to make determinations that they have to make, whether it be admissions to colleges or placement once a student gets there. So what we did was we took from here, we came up with, and this is an important slide, and you have copies of both the guiding principle slide I just showed you as well as this next upcoming slide. What we did was we came up with some concepts that we wanted to honor as we built this report. And the first one had to do with averaging practices. So we are pretty committed, as we're moving our schools, to move out of a 100-point scale grading system. So and move to a 1 to 4 scoring scale system that honors, and actually it matches up nicely with our curriculum itself. And so our goal here is, as we move into the transcript calculations and all those determinations, like things like traditional grade point averages and so forth, that we get the averaging practices as far away from individual activities and assignments as we can. So that was the first commitment. The second commitment we wanted to make was that we were not going to compare learners with each other, that we're going to compare learners against the learner outcomes, the expectations that we have for all learners. It doesn't matter how quickly you get there, but you get there. And so that's one of the whole idea of valedictorian and top 10 and so forth. We're really ready to challenge that. And we want it to become, what's important is, a lot of folks think that when we want to get rid of valedictorian and top 10 type of designations, that we're not going to honor learners. And we are, and that's what I'm here to do, is to kind of give you an idea of what we've come up with so far in ways we think we can honor learners without comparing them to each other. We want to compare them against a set of criteria. And we want to use the activities and assignments that we all are pretty good at to actually lead to that proficiency in those particular learner outcomes. I see this as probably the most difficult part for teachers, is that moving from a focus on learning, on activities and assignments to learning goals. I was surprised at how long that took. I think it sounds like a simple concept, but it's very hard. And I, personally see myself as I teach some graduate courses, and I try to follow this model. And I find myself going backwards a lot in my thinking. It's like, oh, this would be a really good article to read. This would be a good activity to do. Well, how does that connect to the learning goals? And that, so that kind of conversation. We know from our admissions people that this number 5 is absolutely critical. They get very frustrated when they look at what they'll tell you is they see all kinds of different transcripts. The key is that we need to be able to interpret it. So get that scoring scale right up front, so we can clearly see what the numbers or the text that you have on the picture show, on the report show. We started with a 1 to 4 scale, and we ended up realizing that if we used 2.5s and 3.5s, we had more reliability on behalf of teachers. So that's one of the concepts. And then we have this idea of a research test. Whoops. We have this idea of a research test. It's really 3 questions. Does this practice encourage learners to learn? And does the practice honor that mistakes are inherent in the learning process? And then the third one, which I cannot see up here on the screen. Does anybody have it right on their screen?
Does the practice honor that learners learn in different time frames?
Different time frames here. So let's move forward, and I'm going to give you a quick glimpse very quickly, some background knowledge about our curriculum structure, and then I want to be able to kind of show you how that test of 3 questions is honored with the new report that we put together. So we have this curriculum model, and with the 3 circles, and those of you that were with us yesterday, we sort of outlined in detail the fact that we live right here in the middle of the 3 circles. Our teachers build activities and assignments that not only include content knowledge, but also address an explicit focus and teaching of critical thinking and habits of mind. And so this particular slide gives you that idea. Then what happens is we've broken down every content area into a set of measurement topics. So this structure right here is important to kind of get a sense for and maybe relate to what it is you're doing with your curriculum and your learner outcomes as we relate it to how we're calculating and honoring students. So what we've got is this set of progressions. These are not grade levels at all. The curriculum has no mention of who, when, where, or how this will be taught. What it says is this is the learning progression. If you're going to teach print concepts, these are the 4 learning progressions that you would use. And so learners can be anywhere on this continuum. Behind every one of these little boxes is a scoring scale, or what we call a rubric. And every rubric identifies the learner outcomes here, the learning expectations, at what level of rigor that child must meet that learning expectation. And then over here are a variety of ways in which they can meet the learning expectation. So that there are multiple ways to demonstrate learning, but the common piece is that the learning goals are common, as well as the taxonomy level, the rigor level is common. So thinking about that aspect of it, and we now have our students being scored on a 1 to 4 scale, we started to think about what would a transcript report look like. What this slide tells you is that this is definitely a work in progress. And we kind of make sure that folks understand that. We've got a definition for an educational transcript. It is an official copy of a student's educational record, which is it's a picture of the result of multiple years of academic work. We sort of had to remind ourselves as we were sitting at the table designing this particular report. The other thing I will mention as I progress here is that we have a software developer who has been working with us now for 5 years and allowed us to make some adjustments in that program such that it honors some of these things we want it to do. So we're currently, when I say we're in a work in progress, we currently have a demo high school where we can put some data in and then use the calculations and scoring patterns I'm about to show you to see what it might look like. So that's kind of where we're at with this stage. So here's the first determination. Remember back to that scoring scale where every student is getting a score on these learning targets. So what we had to do is say, how will teachers assign those learning target scores? They're going to give a bunch of activities and assignments in class. How are they going to determine that a student actually has a 3 or a 4? And so what we've done is we've said we don't want to use these principles around averaging and percents. So we said to teachers, don't give them a bunch of activities and assignments and then average those. Because we're going back to our guiding principles, it doesn't honor that mistakes are inherent in the learning process. If you get a learner that makes a mistake early in an early assignment, they get punished all the way through if you continue to average those scores. So we kind of had those conversations.